We're back.
We're back. So, we wanted to start off by saying, wow. It's been a bit of a crazy week. So I felt like I wanted to mention, I'm seeing a lot of business folks on my Facebook page, and I'm not meaning to criticize, but basically I'm seeing people who are trying to do like business as usual and, not really say anything about like the current events happening right now. And, I get it that people don't want to mix business and, complex current events, because I think even if you're trying not to be political right now, it's difficult. However, for us, I wanted to say it feels really weird to not mention that things have been difficult, and that, a lot of people are having a lot of feelings right now. And by us coming and doing a regular old Facebook Live about business stuff, we in no way want to take away from, the gravity of everything else that's happening. But we do want to try to continue to have some consistency. And, we made a commitment that we would be here Mondays and Thursdays. So we want to keep doing that. But we also want to be respectful to what's going on and understanding that, right now people might not be super focused on business because there's other things that are more important. And that's okay. So, we're here to do this thing, and it'll be up on our page so that people can watch at their leisure. And we are, we are as distracted as everybody else by everything that's going on, and feeling terrible about it. And we want to do something valuable. So if that means we come on here and try to help some people start up something new, because that was something that they wanted to do, or something that they're thinking about doing now as a result of whatever craziness has happened here in the first half of 2020, then we feel like we bring some value and support it. So just wanted to say that.
Yes. And thank you, Lisa, for that, because I do feel like some of us are, because we're in the midst of our working our business, and we try really hard to focus on that and that only. But with everything that has happened, I think it's really hard to do that right now, for a lot of people. Yeah. So, but Lisa is right, and this is what we're about. We just want to make sure that it's not all bad. There are still things that you can do and you can take control of. If you wanted to start something in real estate investing, we're hoping that our page and our stories will help you to do that and just kind of change the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah.
But we definitely understand that it's not really good out there right now, but we got to make the best of it, whatever that might be.
Yeah. And, I think, I've certainly been in a position since, all of this started, to reconsider how I want to shape my business. And I think that there are probably other people out there doing the same, or, maybe looking for a clean slate, looking to start something new, or being in a position where they need to start something new. So we hope we can support that and offer some good information for anyone who's looking to get into our industry. And so what we were looking to discuss today, we basically just want to tell the story of how we started without knowledge and without capital. Because I think that that's a really important thing, especially when you're talking about real estate investing. I hear a lot of people talk about their interest in it. And I also hear a lot of people talk about not knowing where to start and thinking that they need a lot of money set aside in order to start, because they take the term investing literally, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Right.
Right. And so people have some ideas that may not quite be right in actuality for what is expected when you're going to start in a business like this. And so we thought we would tell our story about how it came to fruition for us. It's a little bit different for everyone, but it's good, I think, to hear all of the different ways that different people have started, because what it helps you to realize is that there's no one right way to do it. And it helps you realize where you may have opportunity that you can get a foot in the door and then like leverage that opportunity, because there's a lot of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not, you're right. I think people have a tendency to think I need at least 50 grand to get into this. Yeah, no, there's a lot of other ways that you can start, at least tiptoe in there and start making waves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the idea that anybody should just have a whole bunch of money and then jump in buying properties and all of a sudden you're a real estate investor, that's not really how this works.
No.
I mean, maybe for some people who did manage to come in with a bunch of capital from another business or whatever the situation might be, sure, that's a possibility. Actually, one of the things that I read pretty frequently is a lot of celebrities are sort of closet real estate investors. You know, they make a lot of money and they have to put their money someplace for tax purposes and things like that. But they also need their money to grow, right? Because depending on what kind of, you know, say you're an athlete, your career is shorter, for example, as an athlete, as it might be, you know, versus an actor. So thinking about it from that standpoint, sure. Are there people who come in and just buy up properties? Yes. Is that how most of the lay people do it, who end up doing this as their full-time gig? No, there's different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Angie and I have similar sort of background stories in starting with this, basically because we met each other at a meetup event that would lead to both of us working under the same mentors. And this was actually kind of awesome because what we say a lot, Angie and I say that we grew up together in real estate.
Yeah.
And it's,
we're still growing.
yeah, we're not adults yet.
No.
We're like in middle school of real estate.
We're a teenage, almost a teen. God.
But you know, I think we have a unique situation because I know for me it was really valuable to have somebody else that was at the same level, more or less, that I was at when all of this was going on and I was learning, because you definitely, you know, it's like drinking from a fire hose, and you get to a point sometimes where you're just like, I don't know where to go next, or I don't know how to get to the next level, or I don't understand, you know, kind of it's like, you know, that you're on a plateau and you're trying to get up to the next spot and you don't quite know how to get there. And having someone else who's going through that to brainstorm with has been, anyway, for me, really, really helpful. So I think it's something to think about on your journey. If you're new, maybe considering befriending some other new people who are at your level, so that you can kind of bounce things off of each other and have support, because it's a little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, I think there's a big thing to say about, you know, no man is an island. Is that what that saying is? No man is an island? Yes. So you can't, I'm sorry, and maybe some people can, but if you really want to get the most out of it, you need like your go-to person, whether that person is your, whether it is a mentor or it's like your partner in crime that's going to kind of help you through all of this. Because as you get bombarded, like Lisa said, with all this information, and sometimes you're trying to kind of sift through it and figure out the best strategy, and you're not gonna know. And who else does it feel better to kind of confide in would be like your partner. there were many times where I know Lisa would, and we would have these meetings too, where we would kind of listen in on what the deals that we were trying to do. And you learn so much that way because you do discuss, you know, the things and happenings that are happening for that particular family or situation. And how does Lisa work that? How is that might that impact me later on if I have the same situation? Or maybe Lisa wants to partner up too. So it's just, you need somebody there. I'm a big believer that you cannot do this by yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. You know, both of us came in with our significant other partners, right?
Yeah.
Worked with us on this as well. So it was the four of us that came in, you know, right around the same period of time. And we actually came in under a couple of mentors that had a business that was already functioning, but they needed some help. They were to the point where they had too many leads for just the two of them to work all of the leads on their own. And so part of this was, you know, like divine timing, you know, because we didn't really even know to seek out mentorship at the time. You know, we belonged to a meetup group. We knew that we had some interest in real estate investing, but we're over here trying to figure out how do we kind of get into that. So it was great that we ended up meeting our mentors really early on, and they needed some help because it was a win-win. So the approach for us was, they said, this is what we're looking for, essentially. This is, you know, these are the tasks that we need people to do. And so what we would like to do is bring you in. We're going to teach you how to do everything that you need to do. And then we're going to put you on sort of a commission structure. So, you know, you're going to get paid every time a deal closes, and it's going to start off at a, you know, lower end because you're not going to be able to do a lot by yourself. And then the more you learn and the more you can work the leads on your own, essentially the bigger piece we're going to give you of the deal. And in my opinion, that's very fair, because at the beginning, you don't know. I mean, we were very handheld, and our mentors explained everything to us, everything from how to put together, you know, your list. At the time we were door knocking, so it was how to put together your list, to how to go out and door knock effectively, to what you say at the door, to what do you do when you need to do more research because you're not getting anywhere. So there was a lot of information that they were giving us. And, you know, there are a lot of people that spend a lot of money on coaching products, or, you know, or they pay a mentor to teach those things. So I think that was, you know, that was huge for us, that we got to tap into that, being in a situation where instead of having to come out of pocket, our mentors were willing to say, come and do the work. We want to make sure that you get something out of it, but this way, you know, it's a win-win.
Yeah, it was learn as you go, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did, and I think, and that's why I said you need to find that go-to person. So whether it is a mentor or whether it is an actual entity already, of course, everybody works a little bit differently. We were lucky enough to get in at the very big, I think more at the beginning stages of their drive team. So we learned a lot more quite fast, because we literally got thrown in there. I mean, there wasn't a, you know, a week's orientation or something, you know,
Nope.
nothing like that. It was, here's a list of the people, this is the situation, here's a little letter, and you kind of read it and you're thinking, okay, you fill it out with the information that you need and you go, and that was it.
Yeah,
literally. But with that said, I think again, having that go-to person or that go-to entity that is willing to not necessarily take you by the hand, but to, you know, guide you, because you yourself need to absolutely step up and do a lot of that work too. That's the only way that you're going to learn.
Yes.
But I mean, other than putting up what we spent gas, that's what we did. Gas money.
Yeah.
Lunch money. Yeah. And but we threw ourselves in there. That was our investment for about a year.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a great point, because the thing is that if you're starting out with no capital, and you need to find a way to get mentorship, or to get, direct guidance, and that's not something that you're able to pay for, you have to be willing to do like the sweat equity in order to, get in with someone that's willing to give you that information. Because if you're going to work with someone who has an existing business, they're not going to be able to take time away from their functioning business to stop everything to mentor you. Because if
Mhm.
you do that, now they're not working in their business. And that means that their business is not getting the attention that it needs. And this is why it was a win-win with us, because our mentors had a system in place that they had put together before they brought us on.
Right.
And they understood what it was that they needed, so they knew how to structure things, to put us in place, so that every moment that they were spending with us to teach us something was going to give them a return in their business. And of course, it was giving us a return because we were learning the knowledge that they already had. So that's the kind of thing that you want to be looking for. And as Angie and I have grown in our business, we've had so many people approach us and say, "Would you teach me how?" And the thing that's really hard for people to understand is we could want to teach everybody who comes to us how to do this. And if we did that, we would be out of business ourselves. Because
Yeah.
the way that this business functions, you have to be constantly building your pipeline in order to maintain momentum. This particular business, the way that it's set up for us, it's not something that you can take your attention off of and it goes without you. Now, when you get to the point where you have a large rental portfolio, yeah, you can do that because you've set it up so that you've got money that's being made on a monthly basis without you needing to constantly do something to create that.
Yep.
But that takes a while to get to that point. So when you're starting out, if you're looking to do something that doesn't require a big capital investment, then the investment that you end up making is a time investment, and a learning investment. And so that means you're going to spend your time absorbing all the information that you can from the people that you're involved with that are helping out. And you're going to spend all your time actually working on all of these different tasks that are going to enable you to learn the business.
Exactly. And this it is so funny because people do. Can you teach me? Can you go with me? Can I go with you? And one of the things is we don't knock anymore. Um, we will if we have to, or if we want to. But I think you graduate as you do your real estate investment career.
Yeah.
However, there are some folks that's strictly what they do, period, and the story. That's all they'll ever do, which is I really admire that because you do tend to get like we've talked in other stories. You get the personalities and the energy that surrounds that is really negative sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person that I can't do that forever. So I had to like pluck myself out of it and do other things to keep learning within real estate investing. But I don't necessarily want a doorknob anymore. But I find it because when people say, "Can you teach me or can I go with you?" It's almost like you're handing everything over. Didn't it feel like that to you? Like
Yes.
you were handing everything over?
Yes.
And there wasn't any real, how should I say it, effort on the other side either. So it's really I think personally, if you are going to try and invest into somebody else's time and energy and education, that you think about the kinds of things that you are willing to bring to the table as well in order to make it work for that person to teach you whatever they know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You have to be willing to bring some value on your own. And one of the things that Angie and I think have said until we're blue in the face every time we've talked about this, because we've been asked so many times, how did you start? I don't know where to start. And one of the things that we talk about all the time was not only did we start in a position where we had to offer up some value ourselves, but we also came from a place of fully understanding that we didn't have a background, in this industry. We didn't know what we were dealing with, and it was all brand new information. So that
Mhm.
being the case, when our mentors told us to do something, we just did it. We didn't
Right.
argue. We didn't question, why do you do it like that? We certainly didn't say, I think that this is how you can do it better, because we didn't know that that was the case. And we needed to learn,
Mhm.
we needed to learn a foundation first. And our mentors were running a well-functioning business. Who were we to argue with the way that they were systemizing things?
Yeah.
And I think that that is one of the most both like frustrating things, but also one of the most surprising things about people approaching us and saying, will you teach us? Because the minute that you start giving out information, the first thing people do is disagree with you. And
Yeah.
we got to the point where it was like, well, if you already know everything, why are you asking us?
I know.
Obviously, we can't be of any help.
I have to share a story. So what there was somebody in I'm not even gonna say female or male that went with me one time. Went to door knock. I had a list of my own leads, and they just kind of wanted to shadow me. So I had been to this property before. I knew the gentleman was not going to answer the door. I knew the whole thing, right? So I was already prepared to leave my note, maybe talk to the neighbor, beside them like I always did, and hope to get to somebody. So the individual that was with me would not stop knocking the door. And we knew he was there. We knew the gentleman was in, the property owner was there. But as it is, right, I don't want to, this person's not ever opened the door to me. They are never going to open the door to me again, ever, if they see me coming. And now they have my information. They know who I am. So not only did they not stop knocking the door, they then proceeded to go across the street and knock everybody else's doors. Because, and needless to say, they kept telling me, you're not doing it right. You need to ask everybody. And I'm like, you are okay. You're gonna take it upon yourself to knock the entire block. Knocked about 5 houses, asking about that house, where the guy is, what should we do? Can you give him and I was so embarrassed and just completely I didn't know what to do. All I knew in my head, I was telling myself, you will never bring this individual with you again. Period. End of story. Like, we're not gonna do this. Because this is no. You just and did that guy ever call us? Or no. He went with somebody else. So it goes to show it's just it's different for everybody. Just be conscious of the person that's actually willing to give you the time and energy to show you something or let you be a part of something for the time being. Don't be disrespectful like that. Just follow what it is. If you on your own want to do something different, absolutely, by all means. But this is somebody else's business that you kind of just trampled all over.
Right.
Yeah. It was a fun afternoon, let me tell you.
I think we've both had afternoons like that.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, it's absolutely. If you're coming to the table and you're expecting or you're looking for someone to essentially take you under their wing and say, okay, I'm going to teach you this, you need to come humble. Because if this person has a functioning business already and they're taking their time out to help you, they need a return. And and it's a win for you and it's a win for them. So, I think always take a step back and question, like, if you're going to ask somebody to show you the ropes and then you're not willing to listen to anything that they have to say, brace yourself, because they're not going to spend a lot of time. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to see that this isn't benefiting them in any way, because it needs to benefit both parties. So to me, if you're looking to get started and you don't have the means to purchase mentorship, then the route that you want to go is be willing to do what you're told. Don't argue. And that's not to say don't ask questions so that you can understand things
Yeah,
better. Um,
absolutely.
Understanding is imperative. There's a difference between saying, can you explain this to me so that I understand the process? And why do you do it like this? Because I don't think you should do it like this. Those are two different things. So it's something to be aware of, because we watched a lot of people come behind us that also wanted to work with our mentors, and it didn't last long, because they didn't offer the value that was necessary. And we had our own experiences with that. We probably were too nice to several people and let them waste a lot of our time once we personally had momentum, because they wanted to do what we were doing, but they didn't want to have to listen and learn.
Right.
So you're going to exchange some things.
Absolutely.
If you're
Yeah.
if you're coming at this from a standpoint of, I don't have a bunch of capital to invest, because it could be that not only do you have not have maybe capital to invest in properties, but this could also mean that you may not have capital to invest in education.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of education out there for real estate investing, and it varies pretty widely, price points. And, some people feel that they aren't willing to spend on that. Some people don't have it. Oh, I think you're muted.
Um,
There you go.
the school of hard knocks, I guess you would call it. I hate saying that. I do not like that term at all, but it's a kind of is you just kind of have to you go and you do it.
Yeah.
What I wanted to also say, in regards to finding your go-to person, also, I think your time management skills or scheduling skills come into play, because we found a lot that when people would say, I want to do this, I want to do this, but they never really allowed enough time for it. They didn't have because maybe they have a W-2 job, or maybe there's something else going on, but it always felt like sometimes like the mentor had to figure out their schedule in order to accommodate the mentee's schedule. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's just so when Lisa talks about, the kind of capital that you can bring onto the table, your time is a precious commodity. I mean, we all know that. But it is definitely, it's a good thing to bring to the table, and know that you are flexible and you're open to whenever this person is able to show you or teach you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you may want to consider if, so we talk about in our business, we talk about different currencies, right? So money is a currency, but time is also a currency. If someone is low on time currency and they're looking to learn a new business from scratch, that's going to mean that your trajectory is going to be quite a bit longer. I was able, for example, to come into this and come in full-time immediately because I had been laid off from a W-2 job. And I was still job searching, and I could not find anything at that time that was in the industry that I was in, and paid reasonably and all of those things. And so I made the choice at that point to say, I'm going to go all in on this to start this business, versus spending my time trying to get another W-2 and then maybe do this on the side. Now, everybody might not have that option. I was able to do that. When Angie came in, she was still working full time, and she transitioned differently than I did. When Angie came in, she was doing a lot of this on the weekends or in the evenings and building up. But Angie also had this network of people where she had me, she had her husband, she had our mentors that were able to continuously feed her information whenever she had the time for it, so that she could, sort of, she could jump in as much as possible with whatever time currency she had available.
Yeah, it was when you had to be the commitment to your time and to your schedule had to be very clear. So I knew that on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the week, for sure, I could probably get out there. And I knew for sure on Saturdays I was going to be out all day.
Yeah.
So, and that was that. And if for some reason something came up and I could not be there, I knew that I can just, again, go to Lisa or to Mentor or Henrik, my husband, um, and he could step in for me should I not be able to have that time. But I was pretty strict because I had to be. I mean, I
Right.
had to keep my other job for that time. But I have to like the the scheduling side of things and being very honest and honoring your time to dedicate to this. It was nice to know exactly what I was doing for that time frame. It was clean, it was easy. That's what I knew what was going to happen. Later on, I knew I was going to come into it full time and I could be a little bit more flexible. But if you do yourself that favor of just kind of making sure that you know exactly how much you need to give or want to give, it makes a world of a difference.
Absolutely. And then sharing that information. So so if you do have mentors, letting them know right away, these are the days and times that I'm available. This is how much a week I can put into this. Like, I have 15 hours a week to do this, for example. That will help them to understand how much realistically you can actually do. And then think about starting this the way that you would start school. Like when you're in school, you do have to study and you have to do things repetitively so that you learn them. You're going to have all those same things happening here. So it won't be a jump in with both feet and start, doing everything immediately. It's likely to build a little bit over time. And depending on how much time you have, that's going to depend on how long it will take you to build to a point where you can do it on your own, or you
Yeah.
have your own team or whatever that happens to look like for you.
Hmm. Exactly. It's just, again, I guess one of the big things to bring into this with no money, very many resources, the big thing is to be disciplined.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think that goes for a variety of things that we do right in our lives, just being disciplined about it, and knowing exactly what is it that you really want to get out of it and how much time or, yeah, what are you going to put into it?
Right. And so I want to talk about also the mechanism or the strategy that we started with, because that makes a difference too when you're coming into real estate investing, and how you approach your learning and how to get a mentor and all those things also has to do with what strategy are you going to utilize when you first get in. And because we didn't really know much about real estate investing at all, and I think both of us came into it with the idea that like we knew rental properties were a big deal, right? Everybody wants
Yeah.
rental properties. And I think that we both came into it going, well, how do you just get rental properties, right?
Mhm.
I know for me, I'm going, well, I've just been laid off from my job and I don't even have a consistent income. There's no way I could qualify to purchase a rental property. So that didn't feel like it was it was within my reach at the time. But what was within my reach was what my mentors were doing, which was wholesaling. And so essentially what wholesaling is working with a seller to get the property under contract, under an agreed price. And you're sort of like a matchmaker. So once you get the property under contract, you are going out and finding a buyer who wants the type of property that you're looking for whatever their business model is. They might be a flipper, they might
Mhm.
be, they might have a big rental portfolio and they're looking to add to it. There's any number of things. There's even people who have short-term rentals, or they have group homes, or there's tons of different needs that can be fulfilled by a property, right? So the idea is that flippers, for example, have a busy schedule as well. And we know all about this firsthand because we moved into flipping. And so the project management of flipping does take quite a bit of your time. And if that's what you're doing on a regular basis and you have 3 or 4 or 5 going on at a time, you might not have the time to also go out and find your own properties, because doing that work to talk to the sellers and, you know, find a property that someone is willing to sell to an investor versus sell traditionally, that's work in and of itself that's time consuming. So
Mm-hmm.
the functionality of wholesaling is that you're doing that front end work for someone else, and then you're getting paid a little fee in the middle in order to find them what they're looking for. And that was exactly the business model that our mentors had. And the thing that is great about wholesaling for new people is that because you're not closing on the property, you don't need lenders yet. You don't need down payments yet. You don't need any of these things. You need a skill set in order to get the property under contract, but then you're selling that contract to someone else and you're moving on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
So from a standpoint of not having capital to literally buy a house, if you're wholesaling, you don't have to buy the house. You're finding the property for another investor. And that's
Right.
more of a service-based thing that you're doing.
Yeah. You're literally just taking the paperwork. You're having this paper, sign it, and then you're moving it over here and getting the buyer, they sign it.
Exactly.
And you just put your fee in there. That's really about it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot easier to do that and start with that. I think wholesaling is a good foundation for real estate investing, period. I think, and a lot of people will say that.
Yeah.
Because it teaches you about contracts and it teaches you to deal with sellers in certain situations. Because wholesaling is not just this person's going to sell me the property, like we've said in other videos. Depending on the situation, it might be a great wholesale, it might not be. I mean, it just depends. You might need to consider doing probates and all other could be very difficult or complicated. But it literally is just paperwork, and then you can move on from there. I know that. I think, I mean, to be honest, when I started and the whole wholesaling thing happened, I was clueless. I was all I knew was that I had somebody under contract, and John said so and so is going to buy it, and I had no idea who this person was. All I knew was that it closed on a certain day, and that was that. That's all I knew. And I think it's really, I didn't know, but I didn't know what to ask or what exactly am I like. How is this paperwork? Because again, I was working full time, so all I knew was these were the dates that I had to kind of keep in mind, keep on top, stay on top of the seller, and make sure that I had all the information that title needed to close. So as you move into it a little bit more, though, I think you and I also started to see, okay, well, who are the folks that are buying these properties? What do they do, or what are they going to do? Because yes, they can either rent or, keep them, whatever, flip them. But I think the whole fixing and flipping, because it's still very trendy. I think immediately it was like right after a couple of wholesales, it was like, okay, we need to fix and flip. Now we're going to take them down as our own. So, and that's a whole other resource type of portfolio that you need to acquire before you jump into that.
Yeah, for sure. So I agree totally with what you're saying, that I think that wholesaling foundationally is really, really good because of the skills that you learn. And you learn all about the process of title and escrow, how to clear title, different things that can happen contractually. All of that stuff is really important. Now, does that mean that every real estate investor in the world has learned that way? Absolutely not. There are plenty of investors who came in and they said, wholesaling, I don't like how that works, because it's a lot of work. But as we were talking about a minute ago, you have to figure out, where do your strengths lie? What currencies do you have? If you don't have money to go purchase properties, it's really hard to go jump into a fix and flip right away, because you have to buy a property to flip. Right. And you have to have money to fix it. And then you have to have the resources for the team that's going to fix it. So that might not be feasible for people right off the bat when they come in, but maybe wholesaling a few properties, and they get a couple of nice assignment fees, that may give them the opportunity to make some money to turn around and flip.
Yeah.
So, that could be your foot in the door. So it is really, really good foundationally. Is it for everyone? No, but it's certainly how we started. And I do feel like whether you are a person who, now some people, they just love wholesaling and they will always do it. And other people tend to get burned out because it can be time consuming, it can be stressful in some ways. And there's a lot of, you'll hear real estate investors say all the time, like, you have to hustle. There's a lot of hustle involved in wholesaling. And some people don't want to do that long term. I got to the point where I didn't want to do that long term. There were other things that I liked better. And once I got to a point where I didn't have to do nothing but wholesale, then, I wanted to try other strategies.
Right. Yeah. And it's very unforgiving.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, because you don't know when somebody's going to agree to sell the house. You can try, people can be at the very bitter end, know that the best thing for them to do is to sell the property, and they still will not sell it. So it is extremely frustrating sometimes. But if that's what people thrive on, then by all means, go for it. I think, there's few and far between folks that can actually do that. But like Lisa said, she kind of started to see, there's some other things that I am interested in, and I'm willing to take those routes, as well as what we did too. We knew from the very beginning that we wanted to fix and flip. That was our thing. So we knew that we needed to learn the wholesale side of things in order to figure out the fix and flip things. We just didn't want to jump into fix and flip.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's smart, because how many people have we watched jump right into a fix and flip that didn't have enough knowledge base, and they got, it's harder to get in trouble wholesaling as long as you have the resources around you in order to move that property. And if you're working with mentors and they've wholesaled before, they will most certainly have the resources that you need to offload properties once you get them under contract. So in a lot of ways, it can be a safer area to start because you're not coming in and putting up money on a property where you may not have the knowledge to fully understand what's happening with it. And then maybe something comes out of the woodwork, like a foundation problem. And that can be major, if you don't know well enough about numbers and things like that yet, and you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants, which we've watched a lot of people do, and then you get hit with a $15,000, problem that you didn't know existed in the house, that can take you down. And in wholesaling, it's a little bit easier to get your momentum, to do multiple deals, learn from those deals, and have people on your team that will help you, get through them. So it can be a really good strategy for beginners.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's by far, I tell everybody who asks me, what should I do first? I'm like, learn wholesaling. And it's always what is wholesale? When people ask, I think it's funny because it is. I was very much the same, what? Like, I don't get it. You get the contract, that's what you're doing, you're selling. But once you understand it, the whole concept, it is such a great way for someone to learn. But absolutely, there's some people that come into real estate investing and maybe they just want to do notes, or they'd rather do rentals or 1031 exchanges, people that have other resources. It just depends kind of where you're at. And what you're bringing to the table. But if you've got nothing and no experience, wholesaling is probably one of the best things to do.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in fix and flip, even if you're interested in rentals, the thing about wholesaling that people overlook is that the skills that you have to learn to be a good wholesaler are skills that you're going to need in other areas of real estate investing. So a good wholesaler understands numbers because, one, you have to know how much you can actually offer your sellers so that there's still enough room for you to make a profit, and then for the flipper to make a profit on top of that if it's going to be a house that's going to get rehabbed.
Yeah.
You have to understand how those numbers work, because if you don't, number one, nobody's going to buy the property from you because there's no flippers that are looking to go broke. And you're providing a service that you should be paid for, but the entire point is that you're passing along a property ready to go to someone who's ready to work on it. So if you eat up all the profit, you're not going to have anyone to sell that property to.
Yeah, exactly.
So and learning those numbers is going to be absolutely imperative to the rest of your business, because if you start flipping, you need to understand what your rehab numbers are going to be. You need to know what is the max amount that you can pay for a property and still be profitable. You need to know how much do you set aside for concessions. And as a wholesaler, those are some of the things that you start learning, because, you walk properties and you make assessments so that you can give your buyer good information and that they know how they're assessing their property. Because good wholesalers can sell something to a buyer sight unseen. That buyer can open up an email, look at pictures, look at the numbers, understand the neighborhood that it's in, and make a decision if the wholesaler knows what they're doing and is giving them really good, really accurate information.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot to be said about being educated and learning how to comp neighborhoods, your property. Don't get greedy. I think really successful wholesalers, I feel, are very understanding of not only are they going to make their fee or their commission, and a nice commission, but that there's also room for the next person, the buyer, that's also going to be able to make a good commission should they take on the project. You have to have that foresight of, like, it's not only about me. We don't sing that I song. It's the we song. So we have to make sure that other people, if they want to do business with you and you want to do business with other people, that you're conscious of how you are running your numbers and that you understand the formulas that go for that.
Yeah, for sure. And you will learn those by doing wholesaling. So foundationally speaking, it can be a really, really great tool, because when you transition, you will know how much does it take to fix a property in certain condition. You'll know neighborhoods. So you'll get to know more or less what you can pay for a property in a certain neighborhood and what that property will sell for when it's finished being fixed up. You'll have this huge knowledge base that is going to be really, really helpful to the other strategies that you decide to bring in, as you start to get some experience. And all of those things are hugely important, because at the end of the day, real estate investing 100% relies on numbers. And so if you have a good foundation of learning and understanding your numbers, that is the best way to mitigate risk in our industry, understanding the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole numbers, the formula. Are we ever going to share the formula, or?
Yeah, I think the formula has changed a bit.
Yeah.
Recently, in light of
yes, exactly.
in light of what's been going on, but yeah, that's another thing as well. Is you have standards that you put together for things like how to run your numbers. You have a metric that you might use to quickly calculate something, so that at least in the ballpark of what it is that you can offer. There are going to be sellers, when you're working direct with sellers, there are going to be sellers that sass you and they're going to go, well, give me an offer right now. And if that freezes you up, that seller might decide, that you didn't pass their test or whatever, and not to work with you. But if you know the ballpark of what it is that you're dealing with, and you can do that quick calculation in your head and go, well, I think I could offer you around this, but it's going to depend on an inspection of the property. Right?
Yeah. Don't you love those sellers that say, well, no, you can't come into the property.
Right. Make me an offer.
Make me an offer. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fun times.
I know. They're like, can I at least speak through the window or something? No.
Yeah.
Uh, gotta love them.
Gotta love them. So yeah, I think there are I think that there are a lot of different approaches. I think there are a lot of different ways that people come in. I think the most important thing to assess when you're starting out is, what do you have available to you? What are your resources? If you have a lot of time, you can follow the route similar to what we did and find yourself a mentor, find somebody who has a functioning business that needs some help, and then see how you can bring value. If you're coming into it and you have little time, but you do have capital, that's a whole different situation, because I think now with our experience, Angie and I could say, well, if we came into this situation and we had money, but we didn't have a lot of time, I know that I would have started immediately with rentals at that point.
Yeah, I would have been doing a lot of gap funding.
There you go. Yeah, lending to successful
Lending.
flippers
Mhm.
so that you can grow the amount of capital that you have. There are a lot of different ways that you can approach it. And then coming in with no knowledge, that's a huge thing. Like, so I think that the first hurdle that people really need to get over is, if you're coming in with no knowledge, you have to be open-minded and willing to absorb knowledge. You
Yeah.
have to be. Because if you're thinking that you know a little bit about properties because maybe you bought a house and you fixed it up a little bit and then you sold it and you think that that's all there is to it, I can absolutely guarantee you do not know enough. You do not
No.
know enough. It feels like, well, it couldn't be rocket science. It's not rocket science, but it is dialed in specific information that you need to be willing to learn.
Yeah.
So if you're coming in without a knowledge base, that's something else to think about. Again, direct mentorship is one of the best ways, in my opinion, to absorb knowledge, because you have somebody that is working in your market and you can actually watch what they're doing. So you get learning on some different levels, because being given information theoretically, like when you go to a lecture at school, like that's one way to consume knowledge. But
Mhm.
also being able to see things happening because you're watching your mentors do deals, that's another level of knowledge that is really, really good to absorb from, because you need the information, but you also need to understand the practical use, and you need
Yeah.
to see how it works from start to finish. So mentorship is great. There's education programs. A lot of people poo-poo education and they don't want to pay for it, and they say everything is on YouTube. Well, I'm on YouTube and I have a lot of knowledge and information, but let me tell you something. I've also seen a lot of other people on YouTube, and there's a lot of things that could be misinformation, bad information. It could also be information not relevant to your market.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. There's, how many states we have? 51?
Right?
Like, totally different.
Completely different.
Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah. So real estate is regulated differently from state to state. And so when you're coming in with no knowledge and you say, I want everything for free, and you go to YouTube University, you have to be really discerning, because what if you're watching a really popular YouTuber who's in New York and you're in Arizona? I can tell you right now that the laws in New York have zero alignment with the laws in Arizona. So everything that you'll learn from that person on YouTube is going to do absolutely nothing for you. So does that knowledge actually help you get anywhere? Not in your market. If you want to go work in that market, maybe.
Yeah.
But those are the kinds of things that you need to pay attention to when you're looking to expand your knowledge base. So if you're going to consume education, you need to vet the education. You need to know where it's coming from, what the quality of it is, and how does it apply to your particular market.
And also, I feel, and I don't want to throw any or talk ill of anything, but if somebody's coming into town to present for real estate education, I would just be a little bit hesitant about that.
Yeah.
You need, because as we were talking, right, we're talking about finding a partner, a mentor, somebody that's going to be with you there at all times. People that come into town to teach real estate are not going to stay there. And even though they might have a phone number or whatever it is, granted, I mean, some of those, I've been to some of those presentations and they're absolutely great, but I would much rather, in the way we took it, is we have people in town that we know and connect to on a daily basis should we need something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fantastic point because there's a lot of people who get their interest maybe in real estate investing from like watching HGTV. I am an HGTV junkie. You'll see a lot of real estate investors shit talk HGTV. I am not one of them. In fact, I have plans for a whole video on why they do that and why I disagree. That's neither here nor there right now. But the thing is, a lot of people see that, and so then when those personalities go and they do a big seminar to sell an education, so like for example, that show Flip or Flop that used to be on with the married couple Tarek and
Yeah.
right? So they've come here a number of times and presented and had seminars where they sell an education program. And look, I don't have anything negative to say about their business model, because here's what I can tell you that I know about their business model. They have a real estate brokerage that brings in money because they got a bunch of agents. They have their own construction company, and they have a fix and flip business. Are these people knowledgeable? Definitely. They're not actors, like they do this for a living. However, they do it in Orange County, California, which I'm from California. It is 100% different market than anything in Arizona. So when they come here to Arizona and they give a presentation, there's a lot of hype and excitement, and they talk about things from a theoretical perspective of what you can do, but it has nothing to do, like you're not going to be able to function on the level that they're functioning on because they have resources that as a new person, you don't have access to. New people coming in don't have their own construction company where they're getting discounts on materials because of the amount that they're purchasing at one time and things like that. Like that's a whole nother level to the business that they're not explaining to you. And then they're doing it in a market that's completely different from yours. So what are you really going to gain, from going to that seminar? It'll be fun, but I don't think that it's going to give you the foundation that you need to actually take action. So that's what we mean when we say you need to vet the education that is available and find out what's actually going to give you the knowledge base that you need. And that's why we're really grateful that we accidentally happened upon, local mentors that had a small business that was just the right size, that it wasn't too overwhelming and too much for us to get into and understand. And they had a knowledge base several levels above us where they could teach us. And so looking at those opportunities, there's a lot of wholesalers in town. There's a lot of wholesale companies in town, and they're often looking for, boots on the ground, essentially. And those are people that you can talk to find out what does it look like to try to find a mentor, and to figure out how do I learn these basics, and that maybe put together with some education, and then you go out and start doing some things, and you go to meetup groups and you meet other people who are at different levels, because even someone who's only been doing it 6 months to a year longer than you, they have just enough information that you don't have, where maybe they can tell you some things that will help you to get started. And they're not so far beyond you, or maybe you can collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to say about the networking side of things. I hated networking in the beginning. It was just one of those things where, why is what I would ask myself. But you meet some really great people. There's some people that are doing outstanding things, and you learn a lot. Or you might be one of those outstanding people to them. So, it's just, you have to put yourself out there. And again, the whole talk about this is the subject of this, about how to get in there without really anything, is literally, yes, throw yourself out there, ask questions, get a mentor, network, and pair it up with education or something that really, really resonates with you. Absolutely. I'm thankful that we did definitely connect with the mentorship that we did with the wholesaling company. And I'm thankful that we do belong to an education group as well, because that kind of offsets, they complement each other. They offset each other and they complement each other. It's just, if you want to do it, I feel like if you want to do it correctly, totally my opinion, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to mention that I know that maybe some people had the expectation of, oh, there's going to be like a step-by-step how to, this is how you do this. And unfortunately, I don't think that that really exists. I mean, I think that that's hard for entrepreneurship all the way around, but I certainly think for our industry, a step-by-step how to get your foot in the door. It doesn't, it's not that black and white. And so I would have loved to said, if you do A, B, and C, and you start with this much money and you take this much time, this is the exact result that you'll get. And I've never seen that be the case. Everyone that I have seen come into this sort of behind us that we've been affiliated with in some way, whether they're business colleagues or we met them through education or networking, everybody does things differently based on their skill set, based on their knowledge level, based on how much time they have, and based on how much they're learning, actively and how much action they're taking. It's not as sort of a clean, linear thing. I know that that's difficult for me. I really like you do this and then this and then this is the result. I really, really like that, which is one of the reasons that I really like fix and flips. Because I prefer to project manage rather than be all over the place. But that was something I had to learn coming into real estate investing, was you got to embrace some of the chaos, unfortunately, if you really are dedicated to doing this. Because it's going to be chaotic sometimes. And
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. That doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means that maybe you approach it differently than you've approached other things that were a more linear path.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, and like Lisa said, I think we would all love the do this, do this, do this, and you get this. No, because in this world, if you do this, and nope, didn't work. You're gonna go back and do it again, and nope, didn't do it until finally you get to the point where you're like, yes, sell. Okay, now what?
Yeah,
and then you move on to the next thing. It's not easy. So even if we were to explain, how do you get into notes, or how do you get into multifamily, that sort of thing, still not just, no. Everything is totally different.
Yeah, it is. And now, once you get settled and you have a good knowledge base and your business is kind of, running, that's a little bit different. Then you can have more linear. You can start making decisions at that point when you have options. It's the startup that is crazy and chaotic and, a little bit less step by step than I know I like things to be. But if you can get over that hurdle initially, and you can get to the place where now you have some resources and some knowledge and other strategies are available to you, you can start making decisions about what do you really want your business to look like. And that is what I think is like magical about this, because you don't have to stay in the chaos and the madness. That's just kind of how it starts.
Yeah, it's kind of how it starts. But then you learn the whole area of systems, right? And systemizing things, and you should systemize. And if you already know how to systemize, you might want to start systemizing right away. It'll make life a little bit easier. I'm not a systems person, so I have to really kind of figure it out on my own. But yeah, it's rough. But with anything, it's like when you first go to school, it's a little rough in the beginning. You don't really know what's going to happen. Totally. But then you just kind of figure it out, and there you go. So yeah, but it is, I have to say, probably one of the most fulfilling industries, because of what you do and the amount of people that you can help. And then the work that you do, all that you put into it, and once it comes into fruition, just the sense of accomplishment that you actually got through this really tough deal. it's awesome. Like you feel good. Like you actually did something and it was hard and you got through it. So I think that says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm just looking at the comments here to see if we have any questions.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Thank you everybody for your wonderful support. It looks like we don't have any specific questions at the moment. But I hope that was helpful and valuable. I think that the biggest takeaway is really assess how much time do you have to put in. Definitely assess what is your capital situation. And if you're in a position that is different than mine was when you're starting, and you're looking at this from a standpoint of, this is something I'd like to get into, but I'm in the planning phase. See, I never planned this. It fell in my lap accidentally, and then I just took it and ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a very different experience than some people have. But if you're in the planning phase, you can make a decision right now, and you can say, you know what? That chaos sounds like it's a little bit outside of what I like to do. So maybe I'm going to take extra time to build my capital, because that'll give me more options. And that is something that you can do. And you can have, you can schedule out and have a plan. I'm going to save up for a year, and that's going to give me X amount. And during that time, maybe I'm going to learn some things and study and get to know some people who are in real estate investing. And then maybe that will get us to a point where we can enter this in a way that works better versus,
Versus what they just drop you in there and here I am.
Right.
I'm gonna go knock now.
Right.
Yeah. I
So
know.
Scott just asked us, do we use hard money? And do we have any advice for hard money? Yes, we do. So how we got into hard money, again, we utilized our resources. So because our mentors had some years ahead of us, and they were to the point in their wholesale business where they were not doing fix and flips necessarily, but sometimes they would do something that we call a wholesale deal, where they would have a property that maybe it was in such condition that they needed to close on it and clean it out to make it more palatable for buyers. Because sometimes the properties that we come across, they're destroyed. And that can, even with an experienced buyer, that can seem really overwhelming. So our mentors had existing relationships with hard money lenders, because sometimes they'd close on a property, they would get it cleaned out, and then they would go ahead and market it to all of their buyers, and they needed a little bit of extra time to do that. And so they had good relationships, and they then introduced us to their hard money lenders after we had some deals under our belt and we were interested in doing fix and flip. And that referral gave us a really good opportunity to, one, work with a lender that we knew was reputable because our partners had already worked with them.
Yep.
Two, it allowed us to get a better interest rate because it was referral based. So even though we were new, we weren't getting astronomical interest rates that I've heard of some people getting. I've heard of people paying 18% to hard money lenders.
That's insane.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
That's like a credit card. So we benefited from that as well. And then it was up to us to create a good track record. So once we started utilizing that hard money, we did have to keep in mind that we need to make sure we do right by the lender, because that affects both our mentor, right, for referring us, and it affects the lender and whether or not they want to continue to work with us.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, so that's a big thing when we say, when you get a mentor, that's why. Because if you are going to go into another project, or you're going to take this wholesale and going to move it into a fix and flip, and you're going to need that money, they have the resources or the connections that you're going to need in order, like hard money lending or gap funding. That's how Lisa and I started. Smaller projects, smaller flips, but we started to get to know the names and the folks, the hard money lenders here. I love my hard money lenders. I deal with them a lot. And then you start getting into like gap funding, and that's a whole other kind of conversation too. We should probably do a video on just lending and raising money. Yeah. But I love all my gap funders, love all my hard money lenders. you have to follow through, because those are the people that when you get that deal and you need to fund fast, they will step up and do it, and help you out.
Yeah.
So I am I know that people are like, oh my God, hard money. No, I'd rather just fund it myself. I'm sorry, but hard money lending, there's something to say about it. I love them. They're
Yeah.
great to work with. And, the companies that we work with. But yeah, absolutely. Great, great resource.
So let's see. He's given us some more information here. So he received an offer, 18% with no money down, but then another offer from another lender of 10 to 15,000 down based on ARV at 10% interest. So what I would do, Scott, in that situation is I would run the numbers on both to see which one works out as a better deal. I'm going to guess that your 10% interest is probably going to end up being better, in the long term. And it's going to depend also on how long is your fix and flip going to take. If it's a lipstick flip, where you think you can get in and out in 30 days, that's a different story.
Yeah.
That math might work out a little bit differently for you. If it's a more involved flip that you think is going to take 60 to 90 days, then run the numbers on that. So I would run every single scenario and see which one gives you sort of the best, the best looking numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I always err on the side of caution, and I'd rather pay less interest. Yeah, and because of course, if you're going to have to bring the 15, what is it, 15 or the 10?
15K.
Yeah, I think, come on, Scott, you totally have 10 or 15. I know you know somebody with 10 or 15K that you could definitely gap fund that part if you needed to. But I personally think when you start getting like 18% or anything, I start to question. I don't know. I've only dealt up to 12, 11.
Yeah. And
So
I have to say, I personally would question, okay, who is that lender? Are they local? How did you come across them? Because there aren't very many hard money lenders that will offer no money down. I mean, to me, again, 18% is astronomical. So
yeah,
maybe that's the reason why they may have done their math and found that it's better for them doing long-term business if they offer no down, but they've got that high interest rate. But please keep in mind that there are also lots of scammers out there that say they're hard money lenders and they are not.
right.
So that's something else to be wary of. If you're getting an offer for something that like no other lender in town is offering, it's time to question why that's the case.
Right.
Because with hard money, usually if it seems too good to be true, it is, and it's a scam.
Yeah. And just definitely do your research. So has anybody else worked with this company before? I mean, because we could rattle off people that we've worked with right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, once it starts outside of Arizona and that has not really worked with anybody that we know personally, then I question it and that high percentage rate.
Yeah. Yeah. I would rather, for me, if I were making that decision, I would rather not risk going with a lender that no one I know has ever used before, even if they're offering like no money down. I might go with somebody who is offering, maybe a slightly higher percentage rate, like maybe they want 12% instead of 9 or 10 or whatever, but they're a little bit more flexible on the down payment, and other people that have worked with them, because then you understand what you're dealing with and you have someone who's already sort of been through
Yeah.
been through that with them, and to understand how do they work and what are their expectations, and what was their experience with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is why you network. Network.
Yeah.
Partner up.
Yeah.
It is not by yourself. Not by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because trying to put together all these resources on your own when you don't have the knowledge base, it's really easy to go with someone who doesn't have your best interest in mind, or maybe is not a great business person. Because unfortunately, both fortunately and unfortunately, here in Arizona, our real estate laws, we are not highly regulated in real estate in Arizona in the way that some other states are. And investing, there's almost no regulation. And that allows us to be very creative and to do a lot of things, partnering and collaborating and things like that, because there aren't restrictions in our way. But unfortunately, that can also lend to people having business practices that aren't really legitimate businesses.
Yeah,
So you have to be careful of that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why it's best to just to speak to people who have worked with other people before.
Yes.
Just, yeah.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you for your question, Scott. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Have fun when we get to when we get to talk to somebody. So thank you guys so much for coming and participating with all of this. I hope that this was valuable to you. We will definitely do a full episode on lending, gap funding, hard money, all of those things, because there's a lot to learn there. And so we'll be following up with an episode of that content for you. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Awesome.
All
right.
right. Stay safe out there, please.
Yes, please, everyone.
Be careful.
Stay safe.
Yes, drink your water. It's getting hot in Arizona now.
Yeah. We got there's kind of a lot going on here right now. So, take it easy.
Yep.
Stay yourselves. Just do what you got to do to stay safe and stay healthy and take care of your families. And we will be back on Thursday.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.